Hi everyone, we meet again. Today we are going to learn about grammar or language awareness. For our grammar today, we are going to learn direct and indirect questions. By the end of the lesson, pupils should be able to, number one, to identify direct questions and indirect questions. Number two, to complete the indirect question given with correct phrases. Number three, to rewrite the direct questions into indirect questions. Let's begin our lesson now. Questions can begin with WH words. WH word like where, what, when, which. So these are the direct questions. There are 4 examples here. Okay, the first example, where is your brother? Number 2, what is your father's occupation? 3, when is your sister coming? Last one, which is her younger sister? Direct questions can also begin with, number 1, does David live in London? Okay, the does here actually use present tense. Number 2, did Amanda call John yesterday? This one is using past tense. How do you know it's past tense? Because the direct question used did and also the word yesterday. Number 3, is the restaurant closing now? Okay, let me erase this one a bit. Okay. Is the restaurant closing now? So this one is using present continuous tense. How do you know that it is present continuous tense? When you look at the word closing with the ing here, with the ing here, this is the present continuous tense. Present continuous. Then number 4, has Lucy been to Mexico? This is using present perfect tense. So present perfect tense always use has here, has, and also the word been. Okay. Number 5, is he Spanish? This one use present simple with be. What is be here? Be means am, is, or are. So am, is, are actually the verb to be. Okay. This is verb to be with the present simple. Then number 6, was he late for the meeting? Now this is the past simple with be, was, or were. Okay. So the past simple here is was. Okay. And the be here in past simple is was and were. Okay. Was, were. And was, were here is actually was is the past simple for is, okay, and then the were is actually past simple for are. Okay, this one. Then the last example, the question start with should. Should we start now? So this question is using modal verb. The modal verb here is should. Okay, this is modal verb. So direct question can also begin with does, okay, does or did. Number 3 is, 4 has, 5 is, 6 was, or 7 should. Indirect questions can begin with do you know? Okay, I show you here, do you know? Okay. Or would you tell me? Or you can also begin with can or could you tell me? Or you can also begin with do you have any idea? So let's look at the example here for indirect question. Indirect question here. So we have number 1 here. Could you tell me where your brother is? So you begin the indirect question with could you tell me? Okay. Then second example, okay, number 2 here. Would you mind? Yeah, we begin with would you mind telling me, okay, what your father's occupation is? Okay, the third example here. Okay, 3. Do you have any idea when your sister is coming? And the last example, number 4 here. Do you have any idea which is her younger sister? So, in the indirect question, you can begin with do you know? Would you tell me? Can you tell me? Do you have any idea? Okay, now let's look at how to change, okay, changing direct questions into indirect questions. Now let's look at the indirect question here. This is the indirect, this is a direct questions. Okay, this is indirect question. Now here it says there are 2 main ways of asking questions which are directly and indirectly. Now let's look at the direct question first. Okay, direct question always begin with where is your brother? Or you can use what is your father's occupation? Or you can use when is your sister coming? Or you use which is her younger sister. Now, when you change the direct question into indirect question, you can use, for the first example, could you tell me, okay, begin with could you tell me where your brother is? Okay, the is the last word in the question. Okay. For the second example, you can begin your indirect question with would you mind telling me what your father's occupation is? Okay. The third example, you can begin your indirect question with do you have any idea when your sister is coming? And the last example here, you begin with do you have any idea for this indirect question? Do you have any idea which is her younger sister? Now, if you compare it with the direct question here, the direct question here asks which is her younger sister? Okay, this is direct question. Then when you change it to indirect question, it will become, do you have any idea which is her younger sister? Okay, now let's look at the exercises that is taken from your textbook. In the textbook, it says, fill in the blanks with the following phrases to make indirect questions. So you need to fill in the blanks here, number 1 until number 6, with the correct phrases. So there are 6 phrases here. Now let's look at number 1 here. The first phrases are, do you know? Do you know? So this one you can use it for number 1. Number 1. Do you know where the toilet is? Yeah, this one can use for number 1. Do you know where the toilet is? You can also use could you tell me? Okay, this is also can use for number 1. Could you tell me? Could you tell me where the toilet is? So for question number 1 here, you can actually use do you know, or you can also use could you tell me where the toilet is. Okay. Now let's look at question number 2. For question number 2, also the same. You can ask, do you know? Okay. Question number 2. Do you know where Berjaya Street is? Or you can also use, can you tell me where Berjaya Street is? Okay. So there are 2 different answers for number 1 and number 2. You can either use do you know, or you can also use could you tell me. Now let's look at question number 3. Question number 3, you can use, do you have any idea, okay, when your test is? Do you have any idea where your test is? When your test is? Okay, let's look at number 4. Number 4, you can use would you tell me? Okay, so this is number 4. Would you tell me what the time is now? Would you tell me what the time is now? That is number 4. Now let's look at number 5. Number 5, you can use would you telling me. Okay, this is number 5. Okay, right here, number 5. Would you mind telling me? Okay. Would you mind telling me why you are not wearing a school uniform? Okay, that is number 5. Would you mind telling me why you are not wearing a school uniform? Okay, then the last one, number 6. Number 6, you can use could you tell me? This is number 6. Okay, so could you tell me, okay, where the principal is? And number 6, could you tell me where the principal is? So these are the answers for question number 1 to number 6 to make indirect questions. Let's look at the next exercise from your textbook. Here it says, using the phrases from activity A, rewrite the following question as indirect questions. Now let's look at number 1. The direct question here says, what is your father's occupation? So what is the answer? Can you tell me what your father's occupation is? So we use can you tell me? Then you write what your father's occupation, then the is here will be the last word in the question. Now, let's look at number 2. When is our teacher's birthday? This is the direct question. Now you change it into indirect. The answer is, do you have any idea? You use do you have any idea? Then you write when our teacher's birthday is. So the is here you put at the last one, the last word in the question. Now let's look at question 3. What does your mother cook best? So this is the direct question. Now you change it into indirect question. The answer is, would you mind telling me? So you use would you mind telling me, then you write what your mother cooks best. So the word does here you don't use anymore. The cook here you put s. Okay, you put s. Okay, what your mother cooks best. Why you put s next to the cook here? Because the question here asks does. So you don't use does anymore in the indirect question, but you put s next to the word cook. Okay. Now let's look at question 4. How does your brother get to school? So what is the answer? To change it into indirect question. Now let's look at the answer here. We use could you tell me? Could you tell me? Then you write how your brother gets to school. If you look at the word get here, I put s. Okay, why I put s here? Because in the question it used does, D-O-E-S, does. But when you change it into indirect question, we don't use does anymore. But the get here you put s. Okay. Now let's look at the question 5. Which gift should I give to my grandmother? Okay, this is direct question. Now you change it into indirect question. Let's look at the answer here. You will use do you have any idea? Okay, you use do you have any idea? Then you write which gift I should give to my grandmother. Okay, in the direct question you say which gift should I, but when you change it into indirect question you will write which gift I should give. Okay, look at more examples on how to change the direct question into indirect question. Now let's look at the direct question here. Here it says, where is the department store? So when you change it into indirect question, you can use could you tell me? Then you write where the department store is. So the word is here, okay, you put it as the last word in the question. Okay, so the indirect question will become, could you tell me where the department store is? Okay, now let's look at this direct question. It asks what? What is his name? So when you change it into indirect question, you can use do you know? Okay, do you know? Then you write what his name is. So again, we put the is as the last word in the question. Okay, so the is here will be the last word in the question. So the indirect question will sound like this. Do you know what his name is? Okay, let's look at this direct question. Here it asks where. Okay, where is the post office? Where is the post office? So when you change it into indirect question, you can use do you know. Then you write where the post office is. Okay, like what I say just now, you put the is as the last word in the question. So the indirect question will be, do you know where the post office is? Now let's look at more examples here. This is direct question. They begin with what? What is the time? What is the time? So when you change it into indirect question, okay, indirect question, you will use do you have any idea? Then you write what the time is. Again, we put the word is, okay, as the last word in the question. Okay, put it as the last word in the question. So the indirect question will be, do you have any idea what the time is? Okay. Okay, now let's look at this direct question here. Okay, the direct question here asks when. Okay, when does the next train arrive? Okay, when does the next train arrive? So when you change it into indirect question, okay, so let me underline it first, indirect question. So you can begin with, do you know? Okay, then you write when the next train arrives. With the S here, I put an S here. Okay, why I put an S here? Because in the direct question, we have the does here. So when you have the does here, in the indirect question, you don't use does anymore. Okay, what you need to do is you put an S, okay, you put an S, okay, to the word arrive. So the indirect question will become, do you know when the next train arrives? Okay. If you write like this, do you know when does the next train arrive? This is incorrect. Incorrect. This is wrong. This is wrong. So I put a cross here. This is wrong. Why this is wrong? Because we don't use does here. We don't use the does here. We cancel the word does. So the arrive here should be with the S. You have to put S here. Okay? So the answer should be, do you know when the next train arrives? Okay, let's look at this direct question. The direct question here begins with when. When did the cinema close down? Okay, when you look at this question again, when did the cinema close down? Look at the word did here. Okay, the word did here is actually past tense. Okay, now what should we do with the past tense? Let's look at how you change the direct question into indirect question. Okay, indirect question. So you can use, could you tell me? Okay, then you write when the cinema closed down. Now, if you look at the word close here, it's already in past tense. Okay, you put ed. You put ed to change it into past tense. It is actually C L-O-S-E, right? Okay. Then when you change it into past tense, it becomes C-L-O-S-E-D. So you just put a D here because it's already end with E. Okay. So the indirect question will be like this. Could you tell me when the cinema closed down. So the close here is in past tense. But if you write like this, could you tell me, then you write when, then did the cinema close down? This is incorrect. Incorrect. So this is wrong. Incorrect. Why I say incorrect, wrong? Okay, it's wrong because we don't put did here. This one we don't use. But the close here, you have to change it into past tense. Put a D here. So the answer should be, could you tell me when the cinema closed, past tense, okay, closed down? That would be the correct answer. Okay, this is another examples of the direct question. Okay, here it says, when the direct question is a yes or no question, we use if. We use if and the word order of a normal positive sentence. Okay, again, when the direct question is a yes or no question, we use if and the word order of a normal positive sentence. So let's look at the direct question here. This is the direct question. So it begins with is. So here the question asks, is the restaurant closing now? So when people ask you, is the restaurant closing now, you can either say yes or no. Yeah, okay, so this is a yes or no question. So if this direct question is a yes or no question, then you can change the direct question into indirect question, okay, by using can you tell me, then you put if, okay, write if here, if the restaurant is closing now. Okay, so this is how you change the yes or no direct question into indirect question by using can you tell me, then you put if the restaurant is closing now. Okay, now let's look at this example. When the direct question is a yes or no question, we use if. Okay, and the word order of a normal, okay, normal positive sentence. Okay, this is another example of a yes or no direct question. Let's look at the direct question here. Direct question. The question here begins with, does Sophia live in New York? Okay, does Sophia live in New York? So you can either say yes or no. So this is a yes or no direct question. So when you change it into indirect question, you can use do you know, and then you put if. Okay, you put if Sophia, and then lives here, you have to put a S. You put a S here, lives in New York. Why you put S next to the live here? Because in the direct question you use does. So if you have the does here, what happened to the live here is you put S. Okay, so the indirect question will become, do you know, okay, if, okay, Sophia lives in New York?